At 11:09 p.m. on a Wednesday in November, Pepper thumped once, twice, 3 times. He had never made a sound after dark in 4 years. Not once. Karen's eyes opened before she understood why. She lay still in the dark, the way mothers lie still, not fully asleep, never fully asleep. And she listened. The thumping continued. Slow, even, deliberate, like knuckles on a hollow door. She was out of bed before she made the decision to move. If this kind of story stays with you, like and subscribe. There's more where this came from. Pepper was a mini-Rex with silver-gray fur and a stub of a tail that looked like someone had simply forgotten to finish him. He was not anxious by nature. He was not easily startled. He was the kind of rabbit who fell asleep in patches of sunlight and ignored you completely unless you had food. In 4 years, he had thumped exactly twice, once during a thunderstorm that shook the windows, and once when the neighbor's dog got into the backyard. Both times, there had been an obvious reason. Both times, the thumping had stopped within a minute. It was now 11:11 p.m. He had not stopped. Karen moved down the hallway without turning on a light. Her hand found the wall where the framed photos hung. She knew them by feel, the way you know things you have touched 1,000 times. Ellie at 4, gap-toothed and squinting into the sun. Ellie at 6, with Pepper tucked under her chin. Ellie at 9, which was this autumn. She kept moving. She pushed open Ellie's door. The room was dim, the nightlight casting a soft circle near the floor. Ellie was asleep, one arm out of the blanket, breathing slow. Pepper was not sleeping. He was standing upright on his hind legs at the front of his hutch, both ears pitched hard forward, nose moving in tight, rapid circles. His eyes were fixed on the window, not drifting, not blinking, fixed. Karen stood in the doorway and went still. She followed his gaze to the window. The curtain was open 2 inches, just enough to show a strip of the driveway below, lit pale by the neighbor's porch light. Something was in that strip of light. A shape, low, slow, moving across the driveway. Then stopping. Karen did not breathe. The shape did not move. She crossed the room without a sound and stood beside the hutch. She looked down at Pepper. He looked up at her. His nose went still for exactly 1 second. His eyes held hers. She had lived with this animal for 4 years. She knew his moods the way Ellie knew them, by posture, by ear angle, by the particular stillness he held when something mattered. The stillness said one thing. I'm not wrong. Look. She looked. She pulled the curtain open 1 inch more. A man was standing in her driveway. Not a neighbor, not someone walking a dog. Someone who had stopped in front of her door and was studying it. The lock, the handle, the frame, the way a person studies a problem they intend to solve. The cold moved through her like water. She stepped back from the glass. Her phone was on Ellie's nightstand. She'd left it there to charge, and she crossed to it in 4 quiet steps and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered in 2 rings. Karen sat on the edge of Ellie's bed. She spoke in a voice she didn't recognize as her own. Low, flat, controlled. She gave the address. She described the man. She said there was a child in the house. Stay inside. Stay away from the windows. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line. She stayed on the line. She sat there in the dark with the phone pressed to her ear, her free hand resting on Ellie's shoulder. Pepper had not moved. He was still at the front of the hutch, still upright, still watching the window with those unblinking eyes. 1 minute passed. The dispatcher's voice came through low and steady. Units are close. Then, a sound from the front of the house. Not a knock. Not a voice. The slow, deliberate grind of metal on metal. Someone working the lock. Karen's hand pressed harder on Ellie's shoulder. Her daughter's eyes opened. "Mom?" "Shh." One word. One finger to her lips. Ellie blinked, reading the room the way children read rooms when they sense something is wrong but don't yet know what. The dark. Her mother sitting upright on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, phone in hand, eyes on the door. Ellie looked at Pepper. He was still standing, still watching. She had never seen him stand that long. She pulled her blanket to her chin and did not make a sound. The grinding stopped. Silence. Then footsteps on the porch, unhurried, moving toward the side of the house. Karen stopped breathing entirely. She watched the window. A shadow crossed it, long and slow across the curtain gap, like something passing in front of a light. Then it was gone. Then from outside, voices, sharp and official. "Stop. Hands where I can see them." Karen exhaled. It was the longest breath she had ever taken. Ellie sat up. "Mom, what was that?" Karen looked at Pepper. He had finally lowered himself back onto all fours. His nose twitched. Once. Slow. Punctual. Like a period at the end of a very long sentence. Done. Safe. Someone was outside, Karen said. What were they doing? Karen set the phone down. The dispatcher was still talking, but Karen had already heard the part that mattered. She looked at her daughter. She decided not to lie. They were trying to get in, she said, but they didn't. Ellie was quiet for a moment. Because the police came? Karen looked at Pepper again, at his ears, relaxed now, tilted sideways, at his small gray body finally still. Because Pepper heard something before I did, she said. And I got up. They found the man 2 blocks over, 40 minutes later. He had tried 3 other houses on the street that night. At Karen's house, he had gotten as far as the lock before the patrol car turned the corner. The next morning came gray and quiet. A different officer came to the door. Young, patient, thorough. Karen answered his questions on the porch with her coffee. Ellie stood just behind her, Pepper held against her chest, his chin hooked over her shoulder. When the officer finished, he looked at the rabbit for a moment. "That's a good animal," he said. Pepper licked Ellie's ear. Hard. Ellie laughed, sudden and real, the first laugh since the night before, surprising them both. The officer smiled and walked to his car. After he left, Karen stood in the kitchen. She did not make breakfast right away. She stood at the counter with her hands around her mug and looked out the window at the ordinary morning. The oak tree, the neighbor's fence, the driveway that looked exactly as it always did. She thought about the shadow crossing the curtain. She thought about the grinding at the lock. She thought about Ellie sleeping with one arm out of the blanket, completely unaware. She thought about a 4-pound rabbit standing upright in the dark, refusing to stop watching until someone got up. She set her mug down. She pressed both hands flat on the counter. She stayed like that for a while. For Ellie's birthday in February, Karen asked her what she wanted. Not clothes, not a book, not the game every kid at school was talking about. A bigger hutch for Pepper, Ellie said. 2 levels, with a ramp. He deserves more room. Karen ordered it that night. She found the one she liked and added it to the cart, and then sat for a long moment before she hit confirm. She was not crying. She was close. Not from sadness. from the particular weight of knowing how different a night could have been, of knowing that an animal with no language and no training and nothing but instinct, and 4 years of love had been the reason she was sitting here, in this kitchen, in this ordinary life, ordering a birthday present. She hit confirm. She closed the laptop. She went down the hall and stood in Ellie's doorway. Pepper was on the upper level of his old hutch, eyes half closed, breathing slow. She watched him for a moment. Then she went to bed. The new hutch arrived on a Saturday. They assembled it on the living room floor. Pieces spread in every direction. The instruction manual lost inside the cardboard within the first 3 minutes. They didn't need it. They figured it out together, the way they figured most things out. When it was done, Pepper approached it on his own terms. He walked the full perimeter. He pressed his nose into each corner. He examined the ramp with open skepticism, one paw on it, then both, then back off again. Then he thumped once, not a warning, just an opinion, and hopped to the upper level. He sat there and looked down at them with an expression that was not gratitude. It was assessment. Acceptable, it said. You may go. Ellie crossed her arms and grinned up at him. You're welcome, Pepper. He twitched his nose twice. She knew exactly what that meant. That night, Karen moved through the house doing the things she always did before bed. She checked the back door. Locked. She checked the front door. Locked. She checked the windows on the ground floor. All of them, each latch, each frame. Something she had done every night since November. She turned off the kitchen light. She walked down the hall. She paused at the frames as she passed them. Ellie at 4, Ellie at 6, with Pepper under her chin. Ellie at 9. She thought, someday there will be a photo at 10, and 15, and 20. A whole wall of a life still being built. And woven through all of it, quietly, without ceremony, without ever being asked, a small gray rabbit who had once stood upright in the dark and refused to stop watching until they were safe. She pushed open Ellie's door one last time. Ellie was asleep. Pepper was on the upper level of the new hutch, eyes closed, one ear tilted slightly toward the door, toward Karen's footstep, toward the sound of someone checking, toward the quiet that meant everyone was still here. Good night, Pepper, she said softly. The ear rotated toward her voice, just slightly, just enough. She turned off the light. She walked back to her room. She lay down in the dark and listened to the house, the furnace hum, the oak tree moving outside the window, the small familiar sounds of a night that was safe. She closed her eyes. Down the hall, in the corner by the window, a gray rabbit settled deeper into his blanket. His nose slowed. His eyes closed. Everything was fine. He had decided. They slept.